Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So the Democrat Socialists had their holiday party. I assume the Wiccans and other pagans were out in full force. Joe Biden was there because it's not a holiday party if you don't hear some
bad dad jokes.
Well, and
grandpa jokes
and cheap political propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
Biden addressing those in attendance, explaining, if you call what you're about to hear that, explaining the importance of the child care provision in his $4 trillion socialist tax and spendathon.
I'm worried about families and elderly grandparents and what their lives are at stake. Everyone is a little harder. So, grandmom can walk out without having, out of her porch without worrying about falling, can take care of herself, can be left alone. They're going to keep working to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm. Can I have a translation, please?
Does that help provide clarity?
What's that?
Now you know why they may be pivoting off of quote unquote, Build Back Better. The president is struggling to explain the point of it. Even as he pivoted from that to talking about 2022, because you got to rev up the crowd for the holidays. Okay. Can't wait to jump into 2022 in the new year because we're going to teach the Republicans a lesson.
Now we look at 2022. I want to tell my Republican friends, get ready, pal. You're going in for a problem. And we need to stay unified.
Get ready, Bell? Or did he meant to
get ready, pal?
Oh, I see a Biden translation.
You're going to in for a problem.
And if we do, I believe we're going to win. Let me say this again for the president. We're going to win in 2022. I really mean it. But we've got to explain to the American people what's in each of these pieces of legislation. What have we done for them?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well said, Mr. President. For more on this, pleased to be joined by David Harsanyi, senior writer for National Review and author of Eurotrash, Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
He really threw down the marker with Republicans there, didn't he, for next year?
He did. What's kind of funny about this is that Build Back Better failed, probably will fail, but yet Pelosi and Biden put a bunch of House members who are in competitive districts on the record as voting for this thing that is becoming increasingly unpopular. And now they're going to have to deal with that without any benefit. So I'm not sure what his plan was, but I don't think it's working.
Well, right. And with each passing day, it's going to get more unpopular because people are feeling it. Americans for Tax Reform estimated that inflation will cost the average American family $3,500 this year. So those funny money payments during the lockdowns to keep the natives restful don't seem like such a worry-free windfall now, do they?
Nor does the unemployment insurance benefits that basically meant that a bunch of people would be making more money not to work. So now we have more job openings and unemployed people, and yet the economy just doesn't seem right anyway.
Well, what needs to happen to motivate people to get back to work? I mean, really, it's something. Well, what could we do, or the government?
Well, I mean, I think we need to stop telling people that there's going to be some dependency program to help them every time something goes wrong. Now, listen, I think this was a different situation because we had the government shutting down the economy. So helping people made some sense. I think it was a mistake to shut down the economy, but still they did it. Right. And now people have to understand that we're just going to be moving forward. But yet in blue states, every time there's a new variant, there's just panic and shutdowns and all kinds of, policies that just hurt the economy.
Well, we see that. Sorry.
You noted this pivot that's happening in a piece you wrote for National Review away from Build Back Better with mansions, continued intransigence in particular, and to the voting rights, going back to trying to federalize elections. We heard that profiled by Dick Blumenthal. We were just talking about him before you came on. At his annual visit to the Connecticut Communist Party banquet on Saturday night, he made mention of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and this is what we need to focus on. So what's your perspective on this pivot you're hearing from Dem members of Congress?
Should be noted, it seems that Blumenthal faked fighting for the wrong side during the Vietnam War. I never, But, yeah, Well, they're pivoting to things that are incredibly unpopular with anyone that matters in 2020, meaning, the Voting Rights Act, which, that's how it's framed by the media, but it's actually just it will be immediately challenged. It's completely unconstitutional, undermines free speech, undermines voter integrity, and it won't pass. So what is the point of it? It's just rhetoric, as is, what else are they trying to do? Packing the courts, you had Elizabeth Warren going, to do that. Destroying the filibuster. These aren't things that Americans care about right now, I don't think. I mean, you have inflation. That's what they care about. So I just simply don't understand why they can't come up with a bill that might at least sound like it's going to help the American people, rather than these philosophical, theoretical debates that maybe win them Twitter, but it's not going to win them any of the competitive districts that they need to win. Now, listen, that doesn't bother me that much in general, but I just don't get it.
The other issue they pivot to when they pivot away from COVID or from federalizing the elections is climate change. This is central to everything they're doing. It's included in the quote-unquote infrastructure bill, included in Build Back Better throughout. And you had these terrible tornadoes that took dozens of lives in Kentucky and Illinois last weekend. This week, Biden was unwilling to say that it was climate change that caused this unusual tornado in December in the Midwest. So he's keeping an open mind on that. He's unwilling to conclude that at this point, but certainly others, including the New York Times, were not unwilling to.
Yeah, I mean, the administration, the FEMA director, I think, said, this is the new normal. These people are dying. Well, the new normal would be excellent, not that people are dying. It's horrible and always a tragedy, but that far, far fewer people die from extreme weather than used to. We're talking about, I think it was nearly 500,000 people every year would die worldwide from extreme weather in the 20s. And every decade, virtually, that number has gone down, and now it's around 14,000. So this idea that young people have, I think mostly, that we're, the fear of climate. They need to fear climate less than any generation ever has. We are far safer now from it. That doesn't mean climate change is or isn't happening, but it does mean that you're a lot safer. And this idea that we're headed towards a dystopia where every day we have to worry about dying from some kind of natural disaster is just insane. And it's just scaremongering. And the administration, many Democrats don't bother, still use it. But it's just insane.
Well, it's not
Bjorn Lomborg of the Copenhagen Consensus Center has tracked this. He's written a lot about this. Since 1950, the number of U.S. violent tornadoes has more than halved. And he tweeted out after some of these comments a graphic that depicts this. So, again, we're supposed to follow the science and the data, except when it's inconvenient.
Right, and we adapt to these things. I've written about this in the past. I think, a lot of technology is driven by the need for human beings to get out of bad weather. And, we build better buildings. We have better early warning systems. We have all kinds of things that help us. And that's just going to continue to improve. So, using every single time there's a flood, every single time there's a tornado, we have to hear about this. And it's just not new. I'm sorry. We've always had tornadoes, and if we pass the Green New Deal tomorrow, we'd still have tornadoes the next, forever. So it's just.
Yeah, but with the advent of cable news, they hype it up so much that it's scaring children. When we were growing up, we just had the 3 TV stations, but now with cable news, they start putting reporters out there early, making disclaimer this is going to be the biggest one ever, and it just scares people to death, and it scares the kids.
Oh my God, you're right. It's just this constant focus on everything, making it seem like it's the end of the world. After Katrina, Al Gore, and everyone was saying we were going to have these hurricanes every year, all the time, and there wasn't another one for 9 years.
Yep.
So they are not good at predicting things, and they are not good. But they're very good at scaremongering.
Well, what about inflation? Because that's scaring a lot of people that are on fixed incomes. You wrote an article about it. Surprise flooding the economy with cash payments causes inflation. Well, no doubt. What else did they think was going to happen?
Right, and inflation is the most. There are political fights. A lot of them, again, are philosophical about something that may not affect your life, but this does. It affects every single person, and there's no way around it. I just think it's politically devastating for Democrats to have inflation. Now, I don't blame Joe Biden for all the inflation. There are reasons why it's happening around the world, but we have it actually worse in the United States than most nations, and there's a reason for that as well. It's we keep flooding the country with money, even when people don't need it, giving it to people who didn't need it, who didn't lose their jobs. And now we have to pay for it with a lot of people with a lot of cash, and they, until recently, wanted to spend it. So I think inflation is the number one cause of Biden's, maybe Afghanistan and inflation are the two reasons why his numbers have just dropped so devastatingly.
And against the backdrop of the $3,500 for the average family, the projection that energy costs are going to increase this winter, you had New York City move to ban natural gas hookups in new buildings.
Right. So we have actually done quite well with emissions over the last few years, and it's because of natural gas. And yet, obviously, there are states like New York State, which banned fracking and elsewhere. And Joe Biden stopped the, I forget what it's called now, the pipeline from Canada. And it makes zero sense, even if you believe the world is going to end from climate change. And it makes energy more expensive. And when it does get more expensive, Democrats like Biden runs to OPEC and tells them to start drilling more. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you believe the earth is going to end and that, you want to make fossil fuels more expensive, which is in essence part of every single plan Democrats have, then why are you running to OPEC to ask them to drill more? It is sending mixed messages, to say the least.
I just completely off topic, but since you're in conservative news, I'm just fascinated watching what's happening at Newsmax from the election to present. And so there was this bump in Newsmax after people were upset with Fox News, and calling Arizona early and all that. There's frustration with the Chris Wallace's over at Fox News. You won't have him to kick around anymore. He'll be over at CNN Plus or whatever where he belongs. But Newsmax, we're finding from reporting, including from people that are being let go there, our former colleague Steve Cortez, Emerald Robinson, and it's not about them. It's about Chris Ruddy, who's the head there. He's the Roger Ailes of Newsmax. And he takes a hard line on those opposed to vaccine mandates, and he imposes a vaccine mandate on employees at Newsmax, even with the federal mandate now eliminated. And he's also reportedly, and this is in Red State and other places, taken a hard line with hosts that go after Jen Psaki. Go easy on Jen Psaki, go easy on the Biden administration. He apparently thinks that sort of playing nice with the Biden administration is his way to profitability over there at Newsmax, despite the fact that his viewership is down like 56% as of the end of June of this year, from January to June. Newsmax was supposed to be, we need more entrants to market. We need competitors to Fox. We need more voices, more outlets. And I'm all for that. I'm all for the competition in the marketplace. I'm all for better conservative products, not just in news reporting or commentary, but in the arts too. We talk about that with Andrew Klavan all the time. What's your takeaway from sort of Newsmax as an example of, well, I would say it's an example of a product that really wasn't particularly good in terms of the content and was not destined to really compete with Fox. And it's somebody who's just looking to play politics for his own sort of status and or money inside the Beltway rather than really trying to sort of reshape the media landscape. But it seems to me, even though there are so many quality outlets and quality thinkers in the conservative ranks, there's still vacancies that need to be filled.
Well, that's interesting. I guess with Ruddy, he's been around for a long time. He was a Clinton antagonist, then he was a Clinton. I think he might have supported Hillary. I forget exactly, but I think he's mercurial in that way. But as the media landscape in general, I think that you have these, you have these conservative money men or women too, who just spread money to think tanks, to politicians, to these activist, shops in D.C. I just simply can't understand why they don't create their own media, which in some sense, obviously they do probably, I don't know who funds a lot of the conservative media, so I'm sure they give them some money, but it's pittance compared to what you need to have a real news organization. because people, there's a lot of commentary on the right, but not a lot of deep reporting. It's expensive to have reporters spend months on one story, and very few conservative outlets can do that other than Fox. And, I don't know what how Newsmax is, or that other one, what is it, OANN?
OANN, yeah.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what kind of budgets they have, but, it's expensive to have real reporting in that way. And it's about time they did that. It's far more important, I think, than having another think tank or having another, and I like these think tanks that I'm alluding to. I think they do a good job. I just don't think a white paper is as important as a journalist. So I think that needs to change if you really want to compete with the left in the media, because right now they dominate. And other than Fox, all of these other ones have just marginal, make small impact. They don't really break big stories very often. And because it's very difficult to do. So, I guess that's one of the solutions. And then hopefully you build a market so it can be self-sustaining.
He is David Harsanyi, senior writer for National Review, author of Eurotrash, Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. Thanks for joining us again, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. Not only is it time for open enrollment for a lot of people, it's also when you can join MediShare and save even more than usual. For the typical family, switching to MediShare